Hello, and welcome to the Venue Coach Blueprint for Owners. I'm Kyle Labar. This podcast is all about helping you fill your wedding venue with more bookings, earn more from each one, and keep your customers happy for a long time. We'll also talk about some tough times and big lessons that I've learned along the way. Let's dive in together and make your venue the best spot for weddings. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Venue Coach. Today I want to talk about the close on a tour. So not like clothing, but closing the deal. So I was coaching one of my clients, one of the managers, and was reviewing some some tours, and there was a trend that I noticed with a couple of her recordings, and she would get to the close, done a great job throughout the tour, you know, talking about options, reinforcing stress free, um, being flexible, tailoring it to them, that sort of thing. And when it came time to sit down and actually go over the offer and the price, no problem. She says, "Oh, this is the offer. We have this package at this price, and the deposit's 50%." And then the moment we're all waiting for, the whole reason why they're there, the grand finale of asking them if they're ready to book, and didn't happen. Didn't ask. She didn't ask on two separate tours on the recording. And this manager is great. She gets a decent amount of bookings each month, but obviously we're trying to raise that conversion rate and get more bookings. And so I just noticed this trend, and it's definitely like the biggest thing that I think about is you. It's hard for somebody to say yes to, do you want to book with us, if you don't ask that question. And so I was reviewing, and you might have heard on the interview I did with Kelly, at the Black Oak at our first venue. She converts almost 50% of her tours on the spot, like right there or that same day. And well, not all of it is because she asked the question, but a lot of the times it certainly helps. So that's what I'm saying. There's there's a definite no if you don't ask the question. And I think that, like, especially for some managers that I've talked to, they just feel really awkward asking that question, right? So, how are you guys feeling? What do you think? Are you ready to book? What's your timeline looking like? Would it be crazy? Like, I was listening to Alex Hormozy, and here's a tip for you. But before I get into that, actually, it, the general vibe that I get from a lot of managers is it feels really awkward to just ask them if they're ready to book. And I understand that. I understand why it would feel that way. Not because most people who get into this industry are not salespeople. They're not used to asking for them to move forward with you, right? Or you asking them to move forward with you, right? So I get it. It's not your background. It feels super awkward. You don't want to come off as pushy. You don't want to be like sleazy car salesman or whatever. But remember, you only come off as sleazy if you're actually sleazy, right? I emphasize this a lot on the podcast is remember why they are there to do the tour. They didn't just schedule an hour out of their day plus travel time to come out to your tour just because they're bored. Now, you might you might get one or two people at some point who will do that because 1 to 2% of the population in general is just crazy. And so you might get that, but by and large, you're not going to get that. You're not going to see that come through like hardly ever. And so most people are there because they are serious about booking a venue and they considered yours to be one of the contenders. And so now it's up to you to convince them that you're not just the contender, but you're the champion. And so they want you to convince them. That's why they're there. So I put it this way, like you don't go into the store and grab a bunch of clothes and then walk by the checkout section and the cashier says, "Hey, are you ready to check out?" And you say, are you a sleazy car salesman?" And like that, like, you don't do that because you got a armful of clothes and it looks like you're ready to go. And so the natural conclusion to that, the contextual clues say this person's almost ready to check out. So let's ask the question, right? And so that's how you should see yourself, not as a sleazy car salesman, like trying to force them, trying to push them into booking with you, and like and there might be some people who are like that because they need to improve themselves in their venue. But if you're listening to this and you're trying to get better, then I can only assume that you aren't like that because you're a genuine, decent person. And so stop thinking of yourself as a used car salesman. You're not. And I know you're not because I talk to so many people who say, I don't want to be a used car salesperson on this. You're not. Just by you saying that, I would contend that you're not. And so you have to get that out of your mind and just be okay with asking the question, because what do you want? You want them to book. What do they want? They want to be convinced to book. And so if you do a great job, you present your value, and then at the end, you ask them the question, they are more likely to say yes than if you don't, which is a guaranteed no, right? And so that has been on my mind. It's come up a lot this week. And so I just wanted to talk about that and talk about the reasons behind that, because you got to get over it. And it'll unlock a new level of booking for your venue if you do that. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. There's no one thing that's going to fix your tours, that's going to fix your venue, that's going to build more bookings onto your calendar, like, you know, 10, 15, 20%, whatever. But each little thing is going to add a couple of percents to your conversion rate. And as you add them all up, it's just going to make such a huge difference. Until you get to the point where you're booking so much that your conversion rate actually starts to decline because you're just running out of days. And that's the problem you want to be in. That's when you want to have a lower conversion rate because you just don't have the dates available. But by and large, the clients that I work with, the venues that I talk to, they're not in that position. They don't have the dates filled up. And their conversion rate's still terrible. And so I challenge you to get over yourself, to think of yourself more like the venue owner or manager, or even a cashier at the clothing department, or whatever. Think of yourself like that, and you're just asking the next logical step in the sales process. That's all it is. You're not going to berate them if they say no, they're not ready. It's very common for them to say, oh, we have a couple more venues to tour, and then you can still try to convince them. I usually push back one, maybe two more times before I move on to suggesting like a date hold deposit or something like that. And that's about the extent that I stop, because once you go past that, now you're starting to get pushy and you're starting to get annoying and all of that. And so yeah, by all means, like don't push too hard, because this is an expensive decision and a big decision. And so they don't want to make the wrong decision. They're scared. And so you're there to help ease their fears by showing them that you have a good product, a good service that you're offering. And then you ask the question. So I challenge you, ask the question. Don't be afraid of asking them to book with you. That's what you want. That's what you want. That's what you need to stay in business. So keep yourself in business, please. Ask them to buy from you. Ask them to book with you. Please. With that, I hope you found this helpful, and I hope this single thing will help you increase your bookings just by the fact of you asking the question. And if you found value in this, please share it with somebody who might be struggling with asking for people to buy the services that they're offering, that they want and need to keep themselves in business. Please share it, like, subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.